Welcome back to TLDR's Daily Briefing for Wednesday the 19th of February 2025. In today's episode, we cover new EU sanctions on Russia, Bolsonaro's coup plot charge, and an asteroid risk to Earth. But first, Trump and Zelensky clash over the Russia-Ukraine war. A war of words has erupted between US President Donald Trump and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, as the fallout from Trump's negotiations with Russia continued to be felt. After Zelensky expressed his frustration at Ukraine being left out of the US-Russia talks, an audibly irritated Trump appeared to blame Ukraine for Russia's invasion of 2022. This is what Trump told reporters at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida.
And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue.
In another echo of Vladimir Putin, Trump also put pressure on Zelensky to hold elections in Ukraine, which has also been demanded by Russia. Ukraine's last election was in 2019, as elections are suspended until martial law ends, and martial law has been extended more than a dozen times since the start of the war, with the approval of the Ukrainian parliament. Trump went on to claim that Zelensky's approval rating was down at 4%. It was unclear where Trump had picked up this number, though, as a recent poll by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology put Ukrainians' trust in Zelensky at 57%. Today, Zelensky responded to Trump's remarks, saying, "Unfortunately, President Trump, with all due respect for him as the leader of a nation that we respect greatly, is living in this disinformation bubble." Zelensky also pushed back against efforts by the Trump administration to secure 50% ownership of Ukraine's critical minerals. Zelensky said, "I'm protecting Ukraine. I can't sell it away. I can't sell our state," though he did say he was prepared to work on a deal on investment, but, quote, "we need security guarantees." The back and forth between the two leaders represents a remarkable shift in relations since Trump returned to the presidency last month. After years of Biden's staunch support for Ukraine, Trump has upended US policy to the war. High-level US officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, met with their Russian counterparts in Saudi Arabia earlier this week to try and negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine, without the involvement of Ukraine or America's European allies. The US and Russian delegations agreed to form negotiating teams for further talks and to restore the normal functioning of each other's diplomatic missions. Zelensky criticized the talks for excluding Ukraine, as well as for, quote, "bringing Putin out of isolation." You're listening to TLDR's Daily Briefing. If you want more explainers on what's happening in the world, then you should check out TLDR's YouTube channels. Today, we released videos on Keir Starmer's talk of putting British troops in Ukraine and whether Russia could attack the EU next. You can find those videos linked in the description or the show notes for this episode, or by searching for TLDR on YouTube. In other related news, EU leaders have agreed on fresh new sanctions against Russia, the bloc's 16th package since the start of the war. These sanctions were reportedly timed to be introduced deliberately in the lead-up to the invasion's third anniversary on February the 24th. They include import and export bans, mainly on raw aluminium, and target the tankers in Putin's shadow oil fleet, which the Kremlin has deployed to circumvent Western restrictions on oil trade, allowing Russia to maintain a source of revenue that's been critical to funding its war in Ukraine. Over to Brazil now, where, after 2 years of investigations, in a case that strongly resembles the criminal charges placed against Donald Trump for the January the 6th Capitol Hill raids, the former Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, has been charged with leading a coup plot against the government after he lost the presidential elections in 2022. While Bolsonaro's lawyers said the far-right firebrand never supported such a movement, Bolsonaro and his running mate were charged with leading a criminal organization by Brazil's prosecutor general. Aside from them, a total of 24 people were charged in the plot, including several military officials, and late last year, police arrested 5 alleged conspirators suspected of planning to assassinate the leftist incumbent president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, before he took office. And finally, some space news. NASA has increased its probability estimate that an asteroid the size of an apartment block will hit Earth in 2032. The Center for Near-Earth Object Studies raised the probability of the asteroid hitting Earth from 2.6% on Monday to 3.1% on Tuesday, or roughly a 1 in 32 chance. Ranking the asteroid on the Torino scale, which combines the likelihood of an impact with the danger it would cause, NASA gave the asteroid a score of 3 out of 10. For context, that means it could cause localized destruction, such as damaging or destroying a city. The asteroid is currently traveling away from Earth and is expected to disappear from view by April. That's why scientists are currently hurrying to gather as much data on the asteroid as they can, since it won't be possible to study again until 2028. That's all for today. We'll be back with you tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. In the meantime, you can check out the latest episode of our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard, where we discuss which heads of government are doing well and who's doing badly every week. You'll find the link in the podcast description. This was a TLDR News production, hosted by Georgina Findlay, written by Rory Taylor and Nadja Lovadinov, and produced by Scarlett Watchorn. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow.